Voice work is really important for Marines because it works hand in hand with maneuver warfare and how we understand our employment of tactics against the enemy. We're actually trying to gain an advantage over the enemy, maneuver to the point that we're losing as few people as possible and having as decisive a victory as possible within as short a time period as possible. In order to do that, you have to be able to essentially get inside the loop of your enemy, expand his OODA loop, have a smaller, more constrained or more constricted OODA loop. It works so hand in hand with the way that we think about maneuver warfare. It's sort of how could you have maneuver warfare without having at least an implicit understanding of those concepts. And what John Boyd gives us is a really explicit way of just looking at a slide and being able to understand what might not be intuitive to some folks. Adaptability is extremely important to Marines because Marines are the expeditionary force for the United States. We get inserted into unknown environments for quicker operations. We have to be able to get in, do what needs to be done, and get out. What that means is that you're working with less information quite often and have to be more flexible and adaptable as you're observing and orienting in that environment. We consider our quintessential leaders to be our non-commissioned officers, so those are our corporals and our sergeants. At each level, we stress that Marines take ownership of the mission and what they do. By pushing down principles of leadership to the lowest level, we're then able to trust at that level that our orders are executed. So leadership in the Marine Corps, especially at the officer level, is actually an exercise in supervision. It helps me in the courtroom, and it also helps me in my job when I advise commanders. Marines consider all their officers to be Marines first, and when I consider myself a Marine first, that means I have to be an expert not just in the law, but in the Marine Corps and how the Marine Corps fights wars. If I'm in court and I'm defending a Marine in a military context, the jury is full of Marines, the judge is a Marine, and the crime quite often can be what we call a military crime. So that includes things like orders violations or unauthorized absence, what some people call AWOL. It also includes things like battlefield crimes, war crimes, things that happen in unique battlefield circumstances where if you don't have a sophisticated understanding of what happens on the ground, you're not going to do a very good job of contextualizing it, the context and the terminology, and the decisions and why the decisions are made. It's even more useful when you're doing the legal advice role. So every general who's a commanding general has a staff judge advocate who's like a general counsel providing advice to him or her. If I didn't have a sophisticated understanding about how the Marine Corps prosecutes war, tactics, techniques, and procedures, what operations look like, what an operational plan looks like, how we write orders, I'd be really bad at my job in terms of providing advice to that general in terms of the decisions that he or she is making.